Morning Nerd Show, live here on social media. I'm Marcus Blade, your host. With me, as always, is Mr. Brendan Smith, live from Crafty Growler. And in case you're wondering why he's drinking this early in the morning, he's testing the beer, which he thinks I use in the morning too. And of course, we are joined by the lovely Julie Jones.
Hello, hello.
All right.
We got kind of exciting defense that before the rise of coffee, beer was the breakfast beverage of choice in the United States. So screw coffee. I'm going straight to the good stuff.
Hey, you get no argument from me. You get no argument whatsoever. But anyway, we got kind of an exciting show for you today. In basically doing our series, top 10 characters in different mediums. It's about time we finally got around to doing one for the top 10 characters in comic books. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, there's a lot that goes into, doing characters in comic books. We're going to explain our criteria in a little bit. Also, Julie does not have 10 different variations of the Joker for her top 10 list.
I could have done it.
We have no doubt. I mean, we might allow you 3. That's the limit. So, but yeah, I mean, again, we have to do this. It's only right. We're a nerd show. Anyway, before we get to that, a couple of things that are going on kind of around the nerd universe in regards to movies and stuff that's coming out. 2 things for you to basically check out. Yes, unfortunately, we didn't get all of the episodes of The Boys on Amazon. They want to release it from week to week. Assholes.
So lame.
Yeah, don't make me wait week to week on this. Take a page from Netflix. You drop it all at the same time.
Yep.
And in fact, we actually got to kind of praise Netflix because when they took over the Cobra Kai series, they didn't just drop one season at a time, even though season 3 isn't coming out till next year. They literally dropped the first 2 seasons so everybody could binge watch. So, Anyway, also something to check out, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks once we all get through it. The Nurse Ratchet series dropped on Netflix this weekend. Kind of a prequel before how she became the crazy nurse with all the mental patients, set in the 50s. So that's kind of an interesting idea. Which, I think part of the reason they kind of did that is, if anybody remembers the success of the Bates Motel TV show that was on A&E that ran for like 5 seasons, they gave you kind of a prequel of Norman Bates and, his mother before, he was talking to a corpse. Sorry if that's a spoiler for those of you that haven't seen Psycho. Which, by the way, if you're a fan of this show, you should have already seen Psycho. I'm sorry, I am not. But anyway, but that's out this week for you to check out, and a couple of other series that we want to recommend. Of course, there is Away with Hilary Swank about a mission to Mars.
Mars.
You have to say it correctly.
Go to Mars.
Hey, it's an interesting show. I finished it a couple of weeks ago and very much enjoyed it. But that's basically what's going on shows you can check out. There really isn't much going on in the way of movies. We're still kind of creeping back into the fall season. But unfortunately, the big news, I swear to God, every week, some movie's getting delayed again. I can't even trust a starting date. I figure at this point, just the day before, hey, we decided to release this in theaters today. No, seriously, it is out in theaters today. But I am also referring to the Wonder Woman movie that was supposed to come out like in October. Well, now it's Christmas. And then it'll be next year or the year after. And who the fuck knows when. So anyway, but that's pretty much what's going on around entertainment. And we also have a very interesting this week's Sign of the Apocalypse. It's more about gaming than anything else, but also kind of has to do with entertainment because you'll be able to use this product as an entertainment machine as well. But this week's Side of the Apocalypse goes out to Sony and finally announcing the date of the release of the PS5, which is coming out on November 12th. But also how they handled retail stores and announcing this and setting it up to where you had enough time for an announcement to when you could go in and reserve your PS5 to be released on November 12th. They basically did their live stream this week, released the date, didn't really tell retailers, and then all of a sudden you could go in and reserve your reserve it at Walmart, GameStop, Best Buy, and then by the time anybody really found out, of course, they were all gone. And the reason I am particularly pissed off about this is this one, it's not so much about GameStop because they're kind of at the whims of Sony when they decided to release information. But I was at the local GameStop that I always shop at. They know what we do and, kind of take care of that nerd show in a lot of ways. They're really good about giving us marketing material to decorate the studio and stuff. But anyway, yes, they didn't get an announcement. Then they were told that they could do reservations and weren't really able to call into their premium customers. They swear they made an announcement on the website, but of course the website crashed this week. And all of a sudden, because the stores are going to get limited number of PS5s during the, pandemic year, they were all gone. And they basically went to family members, employees, and whoever randomly happened to be in the store. But I was told, yes, there was a line waiting outside the store when they announced. And when did they announce? Apparently it was right after they did the live stream. But of course, nothing went across official channels. There was an announcement on Reddit. And we know how Reddit is the official place to make announcements.
Might as well have announced it on 4chan.
I feel personally attacked.
Yeah, so I was just, Sony, I get that you're going to have a limited number, okay? But here's a few things to consider. If you didn't get as many made from production this year because everything is limited due to COVID, maybe you should think about releasing it next year. But, oh my God, you'll miss out on Christmas sales. You don't even have enough games for the PS5. There's basically 2 game releases that are coming after the PS5 is supposed to launch on November 12th. That's it. The Spider-Man game and Cyberpunk 2077. All right?
And that's if Cyberpunk doesn't get delayed again. Because it hasn't gone gold yet. So there's still a chance it can get freaking delayed again.
Right. I know. I know.
Way,
I've
got no problem with CD Projekt Red if they want to delay it again. Because when they finally do release games, it's actually worth the $60 you pay for it. So I'm fine with it. But let's just be honest, there's a chance.
I know. I figure Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those where I won't officially know until I walk into a store to buy it, or it's actually downloading from the Xbox or the PlayStation store.
Hey, I remember this game was announced in 2012. I mean, for a while the joke was Cyberpunk 2077. It's not just a title, it's the release date.
Right. But my point is with Sony is I get that you're trying to make a big announcement. You don't want Microsoft or Xbox to take away from what you're doing. And it's great that you did your live stream this week and announced the date. We figured it would be probably within the same week. But you didn't prep retailers to be able to handle people wanting to reserve it and stuff. And, I couldn't even get a call, and we usually get calls early as press. Didn't even get a call letting me know that it was available.
Yeah, I think I think we're waiting until next year to buy the PS5 just because of the issues with the amount of games. I think we're going to go with the Xbox One S because, yeah, the One X is more powerful, but I'm colorblind with astigmatism. I'm not going to know. It's 8K and has 4 million colors. Well, I can see 8 of them, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and I got to admit that Microsoft is handling everything, better. They have announced that you can officially reserve your Xbox Series Series X. I can't seem to talk today, which is really great on a podcast. But you can reserve this starting Tuesday. They've made this official announcement. It's been going on for a while. GameStop had plenty of time, and supposedly at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, you can walk into a retailer and reserve your copy. Okay? So you have
amazing. It's like almost like a complete flip-flop of the last console generation, where at the run-up in the last console generation, Sony crushed Microsoft in PR, marketing, getting people excited about their consoles, having the consoles ready to go. And conversely, hey, they freaking sold 112 million units where Xbox sold like 40.
Right.
Million, not 40. I mean, I don't want to trash on them that bad. But
but
now it seems to be the exact opposite. It's like Sony's resting on their laurels and Xbox is like, we got to make up for last generation.
Right. My big thing is we're a press outlet. We want to do something special and show you the specs and open it and put one in the studio and play a game and really go all out for it. But I got to tell you, Sony, if that's the way you're going to treat the release, you're not going to have enough. And supposedly there's another wave of reservations. If I'm not going to get to know about it as a press outlet, why the fuck should I give you the time of day and review your product? In fact, you started even with me, and now you've gone down 3 points. You're at a -3. And the more bullshit you give me, it's going to be like a -10. So we're just going to keep talking shit about you. And then granted, I realize we don't have the numbers that IGN does, okay? But we'll just keep talking shit. Now, you could always make us stop and make us feel better by giving us 3 free PS5s for me, Julie, and Brendan.
Hey, and I'll take the digital edition. I'm cool. Beggars can't be choosers.
Right. I mean,
I'll take whatever you give me.
Guys, we can be easily bribed by that, can't we?
Oh, I'm so easy to bribe. You can bribe me with Starbucks.
I'm partial. Look, I can make my own beer, so if you're going to bribe me, I'm partial to Scotch, single malt, not less than 12 years old, and Highlander Speyside. None of that Isla shit.
Right, exactly. But I'm just saying that, look, I get it. But if you didn't do enough prep time with retailers before your live stream, and you knew your live stream when you were going to announce the date was happening weeks in advance, a few phone calls, and here's my favorite part. Well, we don't really like Best Buy all that much, but we have to deal with them. So they can start doing their reservations a day late if we still have products left. It's like, whatever.
Professional.
So, yeah. So basically, as we're live on this podcast, this is what we're doing. We do tend to play a little bit more, especially multiplayer gaming on Xbox these days anyway. And we are going to be doing a special, which is basically me camping out at a GameStop and doing some live streaming and chatting with everybody. Come hang out, as I reserve my copy, okay? If Microsoft is going to make it easy for us, that's who we're going to favor in this. That's who we're going to give press to, okay? Now, I had already planned on buying both for the studio anyway, for review purposes, but I got to tell you, yeah. Sure, hey, that's what it says on the tax write-off. Just like Brendan can officially go to the homebrew store and buy grants. No, this is for review purposes before I take it.
Right.
Consumption is just a bonus. But anyway, yeah. So Sony, you fucked up this week. And you were this week's Son of the Apocalypse. So we'll see if you can redeem yourself by November 12th or at least by Christmas. Also, if you are screwing around and you didn't make anything backwards compatible for the PS3 so I could play Fight Night Round 4 again, I double fuck you on that.
Yeah, you're taking away my God of War time, and I don't like it.
You didn't even give me a remastered boxing game. Xbox did. Just saying. So anyway, that's this week's Son of the Apocalypse. We're going to talk about the top 10 characters in comic books and stuff. But before I say that, Do you guys ever have that feeling that something is just staring at you and always pops out of nowhere? I had that feeling last night. It's just very weird.
I've never had that.
It's behind you.
Maybe it's your dog.
Oh my God. I swear to God, we can't control him in this office. He just pops up everywhere. By the
That's
way,
what it is. He's just staring at you like, what are you doing?
so I have to share this really kind of funny story. My birthday was back in February, and I don't celebrate my birthday. It's usually a beer, whatever. But my mother, my senior citizen mother still likes to try to do a funny gift, and it's always kind of childlike because I'm a nerd. So she's like, she didn't really know what Baby Yoda was, but she had heard it.
Oh.
Couldn't buy one, so she bought like a regular Yoda stuffed little thing that hangs out in the office. Baby Yoda didn't get released until May 25th. Okay, and now you can get them in stores. You can get them on Amazon. This little thing right here is the best $13 I spent on Amazon this week. So
He's so cute.
Just saying, 8 inches plush, and
Do me
it's
a
not.
favor.
That's what she said.
Marcus, do me a favor and send me the link. Aaron's not feeling well.
Okay, I will do that after the podcast.
Thank you.
So, anyway, here's our criteria for the top 10 characters in comic books. Yes, it's heroes and villains. Okay, we're not doing just one side or the other. Okay, it's a mixture of everything. Plus, at the end of it, we're also going to talk about what we think is the worst comic book character and really has no business being a comic book character at all. Now,
I missed that part. I have my 10, but I don't have that one.
we'll give you plenty of time to think about it.
Just Google it real quick. There's plenty to choose from.
What is it, Brendan?
I said,
You
just
said
Google
Google
it real
it.
quick. There's plenty to choose from. There's some horrible comic book characters.
My favorite is 3D Man. Well, first of all, you're a human being in a comic book world. You are three-dimensional.
And also, haven't I seen that before in The Lawnmower Man?
Hey, 1992, still a classic. So, by the way, before we start this, in case you were wondering, I got reminded this week, it is officially the 25th anniversary of the movie Hackers with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller. Yes. Great movie.
Don't care about the movie. She's hot in that
How
movie.
hacking works.
No. It's still a great movie. Although it was a very 90s movie where, of course, hacking had weird virtual reality, paisley graphics. Of course, that's how we do it, as we all know in the hacking world. But it does have some of the greatest hacking lines ever, But anyway, that is 25 years old. Just for you movie fans out there. Okay, getting back to comic books. We look for characters that have just more than one great quality, okay? Like anti-heroes. What really, truly makes them great, whether they're kind of bad or not? One of the things that we're not looking at are one-dimensional characters. I will be the first to admit, as I showed my list to someone this morning, I did not put Superman on my top 10 list as much as I like him because he is a one-dimensional character. Nor did I put Captain America on that list. I like Steve Rogers. I'm wearing a Captain America t-shirt for this show.
It's America's ass.
He wins that award, but he's not in the top 10 list because he's a one-dimensional character. You know what you're going to get with him. So we're looking for characters that exuberate a lot of different qualities. All right, so what we're going to do, and we're going to try to zip through this fast, because we know Brendan's got to get to brewing and stuff at Craft and Growler. We're going to start with our number 10 and go all the way up. And Julie, this is really an honor of you while we're doing this show. We're going to start with you. Who is your number 10 top 10 character in comics?
I'm looking at my notes. So for 10, I put Betty from Archie Comics. And before you guys try to flambe me, I grew up on Archie's because my father was always like, girls can't read comics. And the only way I could get around that is if I begged for an Archie comic and got like a double digest.
I'm not
So,
going to give you a hard time on that.
oh, but there's so many people who are like, Archie comics, that's so lame. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But when you're like 12,
so screw
yeah,
them.
exactly. Yeah, you guys can kick rocks. Brandon says so.
There is nothing wrong with Archie Comics. And I have a whole new appreciation for Betty after watching Riverdale, the first season.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's weird and a very big departure from the comics. But having Betty in a dominatrix outfit in a pool, I'm like, I could see that.
I just loved her because she was so fun. Like, she was the fun girl that was super sweet to everybody, and then Veronica was like the high maintenance bitch. It just it was such a great dichotomy.
The show, by the way, that did not change.
Oh, really? Maybe you have to watch
it's
it.
Still the high maintenance one.
Yeah, but I think the best description of the Archie comics has to go to Chasing Amy, where they're arguing.
Yes, or they talk about how gay Jughead is.
Right, and how he wears that little hat.
I love it.
And Brody's trying to, no, that's because he has the hots for both.
He's the queen of little Archie's world.
Oh my God. Love that movie. All right, Brendan, who's your number 10 character?
Rorschach.
My God, are you and I going to be pretty much in sync? That's literally who I put at number 10.
Probably not, but not the whole one. Maybe a good part of it, but not the whole one. Yeah, Rorschach's my favorite. Number 10. Well, he's number 10 anyway, but I wanted to make sure we got away from doing all either, just straight normal DC or
Right.
Marvel characters. And so I wanted to throw a couple curveballs in. And
I have like one DC character and no Marvel, or like one Marvel, so we're good.
Rorschach is,
okay.
he's a little, but I grew up on DC and Marvel, so my list is going to be dominated by them.
Right.
So Rorschach is just, he's probably, if you talk about layers of an onion, he's probably got the deepest onion in the comic book world. He's a little bit out there and has he's got a lot of different facets to him, and you never quite know where he's coming from. So that's why I have him at number 10.
I agree with everything you said. My favorite thing about Rorschach is that he's basically the Punisher of the Watchmen. He's a vigilante. He has his own moral code. Plus, I love the psychology joke. I love the fact that his mask is the Rorschach test.
And that it constantly changes.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is love or hate the Watchmen movie that came out in 2009. Jack Earl Haley fucking nailed it as Rorschach.
Yes, he did. And also, remember when we went to see that? And two guys in front of us got up and left after the love scene.
Oh, God.
And we're like, you're okay with Dr. Manhattan swinging dick throughout the whole movie.
Right.
But heterosexual love scene. Oh, gotta go. That offends me. I was like, really? Y'all got triggered over that? Whatever.
That's going too far. You can swing your dick all you want in a comic book movie, but
the key is it was blue. I guess that's the key. The dick was blue, I guess. So I guess in Star Trek, you can have all the nudity you want as long as it's an Andorian.
right. Nice. Oh, all right, Julie, who's number 9 on your list?
Number 9. So I lied. I have 2 DC characters on my list. And I chose Larfleeze Orange Lantern. And I really only chose him because of that storyline with Santa, where he writes out a list for Santa and then goes hunting for him afterwards. That is I love that so much. It's just amazing to me. It's great.
Nice. I never even would have thought about that character.
I just love that story. I love that he's like, a guy that grants lists, let me write out this list. And then he's like, wait a minute, I'm going to go hunting for this guy because I got nothing.
I was talking with a friend of Brendan and mine's friend Scott this morning, who's also a comic book fan. and he kept dropping names. I'm like, they would end up in my top 20 list, but because it's hard to narrow it down just to one
Yeah.
to top 10. But that's an interesting one. I didn't even really think about it, but I love where you go with that.
He's such a great villain to me. I love him. I think he's just so funny and great.
Yeah. Brendan, who's number 9 for you?
I'm going to go with Spawn because Spawn was a very influential character throughout the 90s. It was one of the flagship characters of Image Comics, which was a bunch of artists who got pissed off at the way DC and Marvel were treating them. They broke away. They formed their own kind of rebel comic book outlet, and Spawn has been the tentpole of that. Image doesn't really, I guess, technically exist anymore. They got purchased by somebody. I forget how that goes, but Spawn
exist, but they did get purchased out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Spawn was the tentpole of that, of that whole. He was their flagship character. As a matter of fact, Spawn number 3, if you have it, it's the most expensive Image comic ever produced because it's Spawn on the cover, drawn by Todd McFarlane in the classic Spider-Man pose. So it's even more expensive than Spawn number 1. So if you have Spawn number 3 out there and it's nice, and you might be able to, a couple of years have yourself a nice party if you sell that. Anyway, but he's very much an anti-hero. He's similar to Ghost Rider in the fact that he's come back from the dead, and he's been tasked by the devil to capture all these escaped souls from hell. But then he kind of does his own thing and gives the devil the finger, because who doesn't want to do that? It's
on my bucket list.
And even although it was a bad movie, John Leguizamo did a great job as the demon. The whole, I say, destroy the world, ask questions later.
It was great. The movie is not great, and it's like one of the worst Martin Sheen movies because I can't buy Martin Sheen as this bearded.
Martin Sheen was as bad in Spawn as Jeremy Irons was in Dungeons and Dragons. Like two amazing actors who just straight up mailed it in for a paycheck.
Right. And you know what? And God love him for it. I mean, I only remember that Martin Sheen was in that movie because it was on cable one time. It was literally like right before The West Wing started, and now we all.
Holy shit! Is that Martin Sheen?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if both of those writers had given scripts to those actors worthy of those actors? How amazing those movies could have been.
Well, here's what I think happened with him in that movie. He got. I think it was that time that he got arrested for protesting nuclear proliferation or something like that, and he got put on probation. I think that was his community service. You've got to work this year for part of your probation. Here's the script. Fine, I'll do it. That's how he was in Spawn.
It's as good a theory as any.
Exactly. All right, number 9 for me, Daredevil. I got to put Daredevil in my list, and I want to preface this that if you've never really read Daredevil in the comics and you only know Daredevil because of the Ben Affleck movie, don't.
You're missing out.
Right. Just forget that movie. Okay?
Even the Netflix show, which is so great. I mean, the comics are still
Right.
better.
The comics are always going to be better.
Always.
Yeah, and we're not denying that. However, what Netflix was able to do with the Daredevil series is incredible, okay? And Matt Murdock, to me, is just this kind of yin and yang that, he's always being pulled by two different directions. He wants to be good and stuff like that, but he can basically be like the Punisher. There are times that I think he is very much like the Punisher and just the anti-hero. Hence, and I think that's the irony of being the devil of Hell's Kitchen. So, and like I said, I mean, when it's funny when we talk about the Netflix series, I can't remember what press screening or what movie we were seeing, but Brendan and I did a quick little podcast review of season 2, and we were literally arguing, like, we can't just make this a perfect 10. There's got to be something wrong with it. What is it? We've got to find it. And we're like, yeah, fuck it, it's a perfect 10. find anything wrong with that season. But yeah, I think Daredevil as a character is very fascinating. I love how he takes on the mantle of the Devil is Hell's Kitchen, also being very Catholic. So, I mean, to me, it's knowing that he is the anti-hero. He is what he is, okay, while he is striving to be good. So, and he's just a badass. But that's my number 9. Julie, number 8. Who's number 8 on your list?
I chose Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. Another testament to the comic being so much better than anything that's out there. And I try to convince people all the time who are like, oh, I love that show. I'm like, no, the comic is way better than the show is.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't like comics.
100%.
Well, do what?
I concur 100%. I can't get into the show. I love the comic.
Oh yeah, the comic is just so like, I didn't catch on to the comic until the show was in maybe about the 3rd season. And I hadn't even seen the show. And then someone was like, you need to read the comic first. I'll give you the trades. He had like a stack of 18 of the trades. And he was like, I'll give you the trades, read the trades, and then you can watch the show. And it'll be so much better. But the comic is way better than the show. I didn't even really care about the show after that. I was just so indulged in the comics.
I didn't start caring about the show really until Jeffrey Dean Morgan came on as Negan, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he's always been the good guy. And to see him throw himself so gleefully into the role of the villain was amazing to watch.
Yeah, and they constantly teased, because they knew that there were comic book fans that were watching the show, and they constantly teased Negan. And I got so mad about it, because they would put these little things out there. I was like, it's the next one, it's the next episode, and then it wouldn't happen. And I have to admit,
and then when
Jeffrey
they
Dean
finally
Morgan
revealed him.
Yeah.
We did a live watch party for that at the Thirsty Growler when I was working there. And we had the lights off at the bar, and everybody was being very quiet when they ordered their beers. And man, when that scene happened and when he, just beat the shit out of
Glenn.
Oh my God. You could hear a pin drop in the fucking bar. It was ridiculous.
I think that was the most riveting, as well as graphic, obviously, but the most riveting episode I've ever seen of any show that I enjoyed in my life.
It was kind of like a train. I mean, it was a train wreck in a good way. It just captivated. You couldn't look away. You wanted to, but you couldn't.
And as a comic book fan, it was just so satisfying, because when we heard about it, it was like, oh, they're gonna fuck it up. Like, it's gonna be so lame. They're gonna water it down. But it was so great, because you got to see Negan, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan did a lot better than I thought that he was gonna do, portraying him. And then to see everything go down with Glenn, and it's like, oh man, they did it justice. Like, I remember when I was reading the comic,
like storyboards for the show.
Exactly. I remember when I was reading the comic, and I was just like, I had to look at that series of panels where Glenn dies like 4 times. I was like, this can't be. Wait, what is this? This can't really be happening. And I must have looked at that page for like the rest of the day, trying to come to terms with it. So seeing it on the show, having it be that finale episode, I was just like, oh man, this is insane.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with you that Rick Grimes is better in the comics. And I don't have anything against Andrew Lincoln. It's just, it's always kind of hard to imagine him as, the guy in love with his best friend's girl, or wife from Love Actually, the turning into this guy. And he, in a lot of ways, is still just very kind of one-dimensional in the show.
Yeah.
To where comics, peels back the layers. So.
And it wasn't even only Rick. There were some characters where I was like, man, you guys made her so lame. Like, after the whole thing with Michonne and the governor, I was like, man, you guys made it so watered down. Like, nobody really understood why she was so angry. In the comic, she gets raped and beaten for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And in the show, he put her in a room, and then she escaped, and she was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get revenge. I was like, man, if you read the comic, this is nothing like that. I mean, there was and even Andrea, they made Andrea so like slutty and lame, and she was just so inept. And then in the comic, she's a badass. She's like a straight shot, that's like equal to Rick, and it's insane.
Well, another shining example of why comics are better. And we don't even really
Yes.
cover the show anymore because we're like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So anyway, Brendan, number 8 for you.
Just checking. Yes, my only X-Men on the list, who still hasn't had a proper screen performance. Gambit.
Oh, I love Gambit.
First of all, so I might be Irish and Scottish, but I love all things that have to do with the French language and just the whole Cajun. I love Cajun food. I love the Cajun attitude. I love the Cajun attitude mixed with a superhero, just because it's so delightfully off-center from what you normally picture a superhero being. Then the whole, the gambler aspect with the playing cards.
And he's just so smooth. He's like this silver-tongued devil that's like...
He's basically the comic book American James Bond with superpowers.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love Gambit, and I love his attitude and how he always has the right thing to say. And, the best thing we've seen on film, Marcus, is the little fan film that I shared with on that Nerd Show page.
Well, I'm sorry, Channing Tatum is not going to ever be a good Gambit. But
Nope.
We did an interview 6 years ago with Christian Kane at the Dallas Film Festival, who was actually trying to put together a TV show. And we've lobbied for that. I still show people that interview. He was so fun to talk to. And I'm like, yes, Christian Kane would make an awesome Gambit.
Yeah, he would.
Unfortunately, I think at this point, as time has passed, it's kind of like 10 years ago, Nathan Fillion would have been a great Nathan Drake, but now he can't be. He's too old.
So the only thing we get is that really great
still
fan
a good
film.
Mel.
He made that really great fan film as Nathan Drake a few years ago, which, by the way, is the only fan film we've ever reviewed.
I dig on Gambit. I just love his whole character. I mean, he's probably my least multi-dimensional character on my list, but I just love him to death, so he's on the list. He's my number 8.
Well, number 8 for me is Venom.
Venom's good.
Yeah, and I was asked, well, why not Spider-Man? Because Venom and Eddie Brock are more interesting. Peter Parker and Spider-Man, they can be fun, but they kind of fit within that character of being one-dimensional. You know what you're going to get with it. And I love Tom Holland in the latest round of Marvel movies, especially with him squaring off with Tony Stark. But Julie and I did the press screening for Tom Hardy's Venom movie, and we both came out of it. It's like, this really could have been a complete train wreck, and it wasn't. It was fun. It wasn't perfect. And Tom Hardy was great in it. But, I mean, Tom Hardy's great in pretty much anything he does.
That's
true. But, yeah, I've watched that movie a few times now. To go back and look at it, it's like there's just these little really great quirks, and I love them, the back and forth and stuff. And I figured I found that there were certain things that they really were able to capture from the comics. The dialogue between both of them is really kind of what makes their characters fantastic in the comics. Because it's basically like you have multiple personalities and you're constantly wrestling with yourself. But yeah, Venom is just a much more interesting character. And I definitely hope that we get to see a sequel to the Venom movie. And
we are. Venom 2's already been announced. Woody Harrelson's playing Carnage.
Yeah, Carnage, yeah.
No. What I'm saying is, I hope that we get to see it soon in the next couple of years, and they won't keep putting the movie off. I know it was announced.
Okay.
We announced it on that Nerd Show, but with all the delays, I'm like, is it going to be 5 years before I get to see this movie?
Probably.
And I think Woody Harrelson would be great as Carnage. So, anyway, Venom is number 8 for me. All right, number 7. Julie, who is number 7 on your list?
Jean Grey. I absolutely love her. I think that she's so amazing. She's, I believe, still the only Omega level mutant in that universe. And she's got a lot of really good layers to her, I think, as far as conflict. She's got a good share of romance, and there's enough scandal in the Summers family for anybody that's really into like Days of Our Lives. If
And
you're
she's like part of the ultimate love triangle too.
Yeah.
Oh man, like there's so many different twists and turns in their different love lives that they have here and there with whoever. It's crazy. It's like something out of a like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, she's actually number 6 on my list. And I gotta love her for the reason that I think she's one of the most tormented, mutants out there. And I love the Dark Phoenix story. I really do.
Oh yeah, it's such a great story.
Yeah. Don't rely on the movie for that story.
No,
truly,
please don't.
We screwed it up twice.
Yes.
I know.
We can never get it right. Never.
You know what the sad part though was they actually had kind of a better cast with the latest round of the Dark Phoenix movie. I mean, I thought they did fairly well.
And it still was horrible.
I'm not saying it wasn't. It was. I think I gave it like a 6, like mostly because of the performances than anything else. Like everybody was kind of good in their performance, but the overall story, again, you keep manipulating the fucking timeline and you don't get it. So it's stop. Just leave it to the comics or do a limited series if you really want to do the Dark Phoenix story. Disney Plus.
Or have it written by somebody who knows comics or knows the storylines. Like, it's obvious. You guys have failed twice. It's obvious that the story is the more important part here.
Hey,
Put together something good, and it'll be fine.
Why don't we just let Kevin Smith write a comic book story that actually gets made?
Yes.
Just throwing that out there.
Don't hand it off to Tim Burton.
God.
Just let Kevin have it.
Just let Kevin have it and do it.
And don't put a producer on the project that wants to have a giant metal spider, okay?
Yes.
You don't know what we're talking about, go watch.
Or polar bears.
Go watch an evening of Kevin Smith.
Yes, no Superman wrestling with polar bears.
Oh, my God. Well, anyway, yeah, Jean Grey is one of the best characters. Definitely a top 10 character. And here's kind of what makes me, with her little love triangle thing, I think because she is such a tormented soul, and I think Wolverine is such a tormented soul, I always kind of liked them better.
Yeah, I like them together.
I also thought that she was the one that truly brought out the best in him. Or he would just be a complete train wreck that would kill everybody. But, and you know what? I really did like the chemistry with Famke Jensen and Hugh Jackman in the movies. Them screwing off. Yeah. It's, even though they screwed up the X-Men 3 movie, when he has to kill her, I think it's the best scene is it's one of the most wretched and sad scenes when he has to do it to save her, even though they screwed up the storyline. But anyway, there you go. I agree with you. She was actually my number 6. Brendan, who's number 7 for you?
Well, so first thing I want to say, the whole wrestling with polar bear things, that's just animal cruelty, because if a bullet can flatten itself on Spider-Man's cornea or Superman's cornea, then there's no friggin' way that the polar bear can actually bite him. He'll break all his teeth. That's just animal cruelty, okay? Let's move on. All right.
You know they're the most dangerous animals in the animal kingdom.
I know that, but still, if a bullet flattens itself on his eyeball, the polar bear's teeth are just going to shatter when they bite him. So that's just not cool. Okay, right. Moving on. So I couldn't decide which female Batman villain to put in this spot, so I put all of them. Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn.
But okay.
And the reason why I'm doing this is because
they would be very happy that you stuck them together.
Yeah, because first of all, they're all Batman villains, okay? Name another comic book character that has 3 iconic female villains as Batman, none of whom, by the way, are entirely villains. Catwoman's just a thief. Poison Ivy is, and I don't mean just a thief, I mean she's a badass thief, but she's not her goal isn't like world domination. She sees the shiny and wants to take it. Poison Ivy, is basically Greenpeace gone wrong. Like, good goals, bad methods, and then Harley Quinn is a really smart woman suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, who, by the way, then breaks free of it and becomes an anti-hero like Frank Castle or Spawn or Rorschach or whatever. So, and also she has a scene where she basically ties up and rapes Nightwing. And Batman walks in on him, and Nightwing's sitting there all tied up going, "This isn't what it looks like." Okay, yeah, it is. So yeah, but yeah, so I love all three of those characters. I mean, they were like Harley Quinn is obviously a recent addition. She's what 25, 30 years old, if that.
Right.
But Poison Ivy and Catwoman been around. We're in the '60s television show. Were played famously by wonderful actresses like Arthur Kitt.
Julie Newmar.
Yeah, they've been around and they've been in our consciousness, and like I said, they're almost as iconic as Batman himself, so they had to be on the list, and I couldn't fit all of them onto the list, so I put them all together.
No, I think that's a great one. Here is something that we are going to have to do next year when Robert Pattinson's Batman movie comes out, which of course we're going to see, and we're going to.
Not all of us.
I didn't say you were reviewing it.
It really doesn't.
Thank God.
Okay. We're going to check it out because, of course, we're a nerd show. But one of the things I do want to do is once we see another incarnation of Catwoman with Zoe Kravitz, I want to talk about all the different people who have played Catwoman.
Because it's a who's who list of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a really good list. Yeah.
And who brought what made it bad, what they added, and really kind of depending on the universe. And I am very curious about her take on Selena Kyle and Catwoman. One of the things that kind of annoyed me, like about the Gotham TV show was, so you have this huge buildup about what is making young Bruce Wayne turn into it. And then he leaves next to the last episode and is gone for 10 years. So you know that he's with the League of Shadows, gets trained, and comes back. And you never see him actually as Bruce Wayne anymore. You just see the shadows of him as Batman, but you see everybody else in the city. The actress who played the older Selena Kyle, Rebecca, and I forget her last name, she's been in a few different shows here and there, True Detective, Banshee, really, for one episode, was really cool as a Selena Kyle, and the way they kind of did the shot with Batman behind her, and she knows he's there, and she says it, and you laugh because there was this love triangle and or romance between them 10 years before. I would be very interested to see how. I wish they had done more episodes with her as an older Selena Kyle and Catwoman, because I love the actress, and I thought she portrayed it very well for that one episode. And it kind of reminded me of how they had to keep switching Catwoman's in the original Batman TV series. So, but that'll be an interesting podcast next year once we see how Zoe Kravitz plays it and talk about Catwoman as a character. And sorry, Halle Berry, we're just not going to give you the time of day because not that you're not a good actress.
But that wasn't her fault. That was a horrible script, a horrible direction, horrible movie.
No, and I'm not blaming her. I'm not. We're just not recognizing that movie. We're glad you got a paycheck. But that doesn't exist in our universe. Like Batman and Robin, it does not exist in our universe. Anyway, I'll always say this about George Clooney. I loved when he was on the Graham Norton show and personally apologized to everybody for making Batman and Robin. Anyway, all right. Number 6, which mine was Jean Grey. Who's number 6 on your list, Julie?
Weapon Brown.
Ooh.
So not a lot of people know about this comic. It's definitely one of my faves. It's not an extensive run. It started off as a small strip in a digital magazine, but when the magazine closed out, I don't think it was bought off. I think it just stopped publishing. The artist turned it into a book, and you can actually, well, you were able to purchase the book. It was a very limited run, but it's basically a post-apocalyptic Charlie Brown. And after the apocalypse happens, so we all know what he looks like before the apocalypse. After the apocalypse happens, he turns into this really big, buff guy and loses his arm. And so of course you got Snoopy. Snoopy's in there. Not as cute and innocent looking. He looks more like a wolf dog kind of, except for the long hair. But he's a very big, bulky dog. And he's still in love with the little redheaded girl, but she ends up missing. So now he's going to try to find her. And along the way, he runs into all of these characters that we all know, having grown up with, like Calvin and Hobbes, Garfield, Popeye is in it. So you get to see a lot of familiar faces, but it's a version of them that's very grown up. So it is a little R-rated in some parts, and there's some heavy language, but to me, that's what makes it awesome. He's a really great character.
Gotta check it out.
Yeah,
so good.
Both of my parents, who don't know, still don't get along after being divorced for nearly 40 years, both love the Peanuts, so I grew up with the Peanuts comics. My mother's a huge Peanuts fan, and I told her about that comic. She thinks it's blasphemy. It's like,
oh yeah,
her, it's like saying Jesus was gay.
The first time I read it, I was like, what are they doing? What? Like, there's sex in it. And I was like,
I also have to explain to her, it's like, this is just satire. Think of it as satire. It's a different take, but it's actually kind of cool. Anyway.
It's really cool. Yeah, I love it.
I just want to see Charlie Brown in Fallout.
I would, hey, instead of giving us Fallout 76, give us that game.
Weapon Brown.
Oh my God.
Yeah, do Fallout Weapon Brown edition. Boom.
They can mod it. I'm sure we can get somebody in the Reddit mod community to mod, Fallout 4 to that.
That would be awesome. All right. Number 6 for you, Brendan.
This is where I put Daredevil. And being the more devout Catholic of the two of us, I put it 2 spots higher. But yeah, so for basically all the same reasons you said it, the multiple layers, especially us having both grown up in the Catholic Church, we can identify with the Catholic guilt of Matt Murdock, and also I actually had good priests, not the ones that tried to touch little boys. So I had very good priests. So having that father confessor in the show, I always thought they were going to kill off that priest and have it be a triggering point for Matt, but it didn't happen. I'm kind of glad, but I really did enjoy of course the Ben Affleck one was terrible, but the show was fantastic, and it does look like now that Disney is going to bring Charlie Cox back to play Daredevil, whether it's on Disney Plus or in the movies, we don't know, but probably Disney Plus, which I'm fine with because I actually prefer the TV show format for comics and stuff like Star Trek, Star Wars. I just think it lends itself better to the show format, but so hopefully we'll see that again soon, and yeah, so Daredevil's my number 6, and we can move on.
Hey, and by the way, if you want a great little Sunday afternoon, you can never go wrong by watching The Defenders again on Netflix. So, all right, number 5, the top half of the list. Who's number 5 for you, Julie?
Preacher.
Nice.
I love Preacher. I love that he's just so conflicted, and he's like the bad guy with a good heart. Mostly the good heart, but a little bit of bad guy.
The show on AMC, which ran for 4 seasons, is a very underrated show. I do encourage people to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
We did not do enough when it comes to reviewing it, but we always do like to recommend it. And I got to agree with you. He is a top-notch character.
Yeah.
So, Brendan, who is number 5 for you?
Here I have whatever you want to call him, Dick Grayson, Nightwing, the first Robin, however you want to call him, because this is the only character really in comics that we've seen grow up from a child to a man to leading a teen group to leading an adult group to, in some comics, in some universes, actually taking over the Batman mantle. And he is an orphan who also has daddy issues because Bruce is basically his adopted dad. I mean, talk about layers of problems. So Dick has always been one of my favorite characters. I love Nightwing. I love that they finally have gotten to Nightwing on Titans. I can't wait.
Hello there, fellow nerds. I'm Marcus Blake, the editor and producer of That Nerd Show, and we need your help. That's right, we need your support. Like any news outlet, we rely on advertising and donations to keep the lights on. To be the greatest show in this universe, we need funding, and that's where you come in. Like most artists out there, we actually have a Patreon account, and we're asking for donations. But we're not just asking for you to give us money. We actually have stuff that we're going to be giving away if you donate. So we'll be uploading more and more videos to our Patreon account from YouTube, from our daily news to interviews with celebrities to gaming videos and all of our other individual shows that we are doing here in 2020. But to keep us going, we need a little bit of funding. And again, that's where you come in. So it can be as little as $1. $1 makes all the difference in the world. And you can do anywhere from $1 to $3 to $5, all the way up to $500. And we're going to be giving stuff away for your donations. So you could get some Nerd Power wristbands or any other wristbands from our series of wristbands that we're creating for nerds. You can get cool retro gaming t-shirts from our Nerd Swag shop if you make a donation of $20 or more. You can even get advertising on our website or within our videos if you make a purchase or donate $50 or more dollars. We have different tiers, like most artists. Want that new video game that's coming out this year? You want to be playing the same video game we are as we're reviewing it? Hey, you can do that with a $100 donation. Are you looking to get a new console before the year is out? Hey, $500 and you can get an Xbox One, a PlayStation 4, or even a Nintendo Switch. It just takes a little bit to help us. As little as $1 per video that we do. And we're going to have a variety of videos that you can help support. So if you like our content, if you like everything that we do as nerds, from honest conversations about pop culture to great celebrity interviews to wacky and fun gaming videos, then help support us on our Patreon account. You can check us out at patreon.com/thatnerdshow. You can check us out at patreon.com/that. Take 3. Go to patreon.com/thatnerdshow and make your donation today. Even if it's just $1. We would greatly appreciate it. Thank you and stay nerdy.
Wait for season 3 so we can see a full season of him as Nightwing.
Right.
I don't buy a lot of comics anymore, but at one time I had every single Nightwing comic ever produced.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And that should tell you how much I love that character. I was actually really tempted to put him at number 1, but it was just like these other 4 characters ahead of him have more impact.
Well, the other thing too about Nightwing, as much as, because I agree with Brendan, I do love Nightwing. I didn't put him in the top 10 list because I have some other characters that I wanted there, but like Nightwing's at like number 11. But you know, I still very proud that in our early days as an outlet, our good friend Danny Shepard, filmmaker in Las Vegas,
From Ismahawk.
yeah, that they were putting together a fan series on YouTube, which was shot very well, and we helped them get over the goal by doing kind of a telethon podcast, years ago to get them over their hump of 20 grand, put it together.
And they've done a bunch of other thing to watch on YouTube. They've done a bunch of videos that were like Flash versus Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Like your favorite DC Marvel mirror characters against each other that were fantastic. I highly recommend those as well.
Well, and one of the reasons I bring him up is up until then, there wasn't anything about really Nightwing on screen. And I was like, but look at what these guys did on a limited budget. Story, great story. It was fantastic. So,
And it wouldn't shock me if we found out later that they inspired the characters on Titan, because pretty soon you're going to have Jason Todd as Red Hood on Titan.
pretty much, yeah. So one quick thing, as we were talking about number 6 and 7 and Jean Grey, I wanted to quickly mention that my number 7 was actually Wolverine. I didn't get a chance to do that. I have Wolverine in my top 10 because I think he's very much an anti-hero, and the reason I mentioned him with Jean Grey is I always thought she brought out the best with his conflict and stuff, and Wolverine is just a badass character. And I also want to make a quick mention, a shout out to Chloe James, who couldn't join us for the show, but her and I did the press screening for Logan years ago.
Oh.
And when she did the review of that, the title of her review was "The Wolverine Movie We Should Have Always Gotten and Deserved." It's like, that sums it up right there. So anyway, at number 5, this is where I start getting into my favorite characters. I have the Punisher at number 5. Nothing to take away from Thomas Jane's Punisher movie. It wasn't a great movie, but I thought he did a great job with it.
Especially his fan film he did.
Yes, Laundry Day with Ron Perlman.
That was fantastic.
Also, a cameo with Stan Lee, because even a fan film's got to have a cameo with Stan Lee.
That's right.
But John Bernthal coming in and doing the Punisher in season 2 of Daredevil, and then 2 seasons of his own, fantastic. He is the greatest. I shouldn't say the greatest anti-hero, but definitely one of the best, more interesting characters. And you always have to appreciate his moral code. And I think if you don't have the Punisher in your top 10 series, I kind of question if you really love comics, unless you're pulling stuff from other comics that aren't DC and Marvel and really dropping in characters that most people haven't.
Okay.
I'm just saying, because you did the Weapon Brown thing that's really offbeat.
Well,
You know what, Julie?
I wanted to put him in.
Beat me up for saying this.
That's right.
I wanted to put him in, Marcus, and I had him in like 2 different iterations of my list, but I kept on tinkering with my list, so he's probably my number 11.
Well, okay. Close, but whatever. But anyway, that is the number 5 for me. All right, number 4. Who is number 4 for you, Julie?
Hellboy. I love Hellboy. Love the comics. Love the movies, except that new one. I love you, David Harbour, but that was garbage. That was absolute garbage.
I finally did see it, and you were right.
And I still can't every time I think of that movie.
To quote Men on Film, hated it.
Every time I think of that movie, I'm just like, why didn't they just make a third Ron Perlman Hellboy?
I know.
It would have saved money. It would have been better. It would have gotten better reviews.
Because what's his face didn't want to do it.
Well, he said that after they casted David Harbour and they asked him.
No, not
they had been in the
Ron
works.
Perlman. Not Ron Perlman, the director.
Guillermo del Toro?
Del Toro?
Yeah.
Really?
What I read is he didn't want to do a third one.
Well, now I know who to be angry
Now,
at.
I could be wrong, but that's what I read, and I think Ron Perlman didn't want to do it without Guillermo del Toro.
So now I need my Reddit friends to hunt down his email address so I can have some words. But I love Hellboy. I really, the first 2 I thought were so close to the comics.
Yeah.
That it was really beautiful. And Guillermo del Toro obviously has this really great sense of aesthetics. So of course it's going to be really fun to watch. But it was really great to see how close to the comics the story was.
We got to give a quick shout out to Ron Perlman about how good he really was. I mean,
Yes.
I think we tend to forget about things where when he's really kind of in a lot of makeup, because love or hate the Beauty and the Beast TV show with
That was so good.
Yeah, love or hate it, he was great in it. Okay.
Yeah, he
Of
was.
course, when she died, you should have just canceled the show, but whatever. But I love him from Sons of Anarchy. Like, I get he is the bad guy.
Yeah.
He is the stepfather in Hamlet, but you understand why he does what he does, okay? And you can't completely hate him. And when he knew he was going to die, he didn't cry, he didn't beg or anything like that. He was just that little nod to Jax, like, okay, I get it, I have to go. So, Braun Perlman.
To be fair, Julie, I just got a message. Apparently, the reason why Guillermo del Toro didn't want to do it was there was a scheduling conflict, and he couldn't do it in the time frame that the studio wanted. And then and then Ron Perlman wouldn't do it without Guillermo del Toro. So hence, the studio just went ahead with their own weird version afterwards.
So I can still be mad at them. That's good. That makes me feel
better. So you
can
just be mad at the studio, which is fair because it's big business, and fuck them.
Yeah.
Right.
So I hate those guys.
Okay, Brendan, who's number 4 for you?
All right, my first villain by himself on this list, Lex Luthor. Because contrary to, I'm not talking about, fuck Jesse Eisenberg. I'm not talking about that person. I'm not talking about Zuckerberg.
You're talking about comics.
I'm talking about comics. Because, and I'm not talking about the modern version of Lex either, where he's given himself like the mecha suit and superpowers. I'm talking about OG Lex.
Yeah.
OG Lex was just a brilliant dude who was a foil for Superman, the guy who could do no wrong and only had 2 weaknesses, which we've talked about numerous times. I'm not even going to get into, and Superman's got him. But here was the character that could not be beaten. And here was a guy who had no superpowers that beat him on a regular basis. So for the fact that he was the foil to the unfoilable character, that to me, it makes you special and makes you crazy and makes you awesome. And so Lex Luthor is my number 4.
And I really love the renditions of him where they make him so relatable, where they make him, he's just a business guy that wants what's best for his city. And he thinks that having this alien that can't be beaten at anything is not good for the city. Because what if he gets out of control?
I like the Smallville version. I even like the CW Arrowverse version of him with John Cryer. I thought he did a good job too.
Micah Rosenbaum is always going to be my favorite Lex Luthor because you really got to peel back the layers of him struggling against his dad, friendship, feel like he's being lied to from Clark, and what he really isn't a bad guy. It's what pushes him in that direction.
Right.
And
I've never seen any of those. I've just seen the comic. So I don't know what you guys are.
I agree. He's a great character. All right.
Yeah.
Number 4 for me, Batman. I'm sorry. Hey, I love Batman. I love that he is tormented. I love that he wants to, again, best for his city. Okay. He is the comic book character is a detective. Okay. And whatever version of Batman that you like the most,
I like the dead version the best.
That, in a lot of ways, is still smarter than everybody in the Justice League, and he's the one without superpowers. Okay, and the one that finds out how can defeat Superman. So, I think he's one of the more interesting DC characters. Hey, Julie, you can roll your eyes. I could have put Wonder Woman in there. I've been all about
That's true. He is better than Wonder Woman. I forgive you.
But yeah, Batman is my number 4. And when I interviewed Sam Jones years ago at the Marvelous Nerdy Week convention, and I asked him if he could play a superhero other than Flash Gordon, what would he choose? Or superpower, the superpower question. He was like, I always loved Batman because he's the thinking superhero. He's the detective. And I'm like, well, if Sam Jones says that, then who am I to argue? That's number 4. All right. Number 3. Julie.
Okay.
Is this number 3 version of Joker?
Yes, it's the Heath Ledger. No. So I don't know how many people are really familiar with a lot of Phillips and Brubaker's work. Okay, but they had this comic series called Fatale, which is really great, and it was about this beautiful woman who was immortal, and she's trying to find out more information about why she is, but also battle off this cult that's trying to hunt her down. And her name is Josephine, and she is an amazing character to me. She's very so she doesn't have any superpowers or anything. She just lives forever. But she has a certain strength and intellect to her that obviously comes with having lived for hundreds of years. But I just feel like she's such a complex character, and it's such a really great comic that she's my number 3.
Nice. All right. Pulling one out there. Okay, cool. Number 3 for you, Brendan.
This is where I put my top Marvel character, and it's Spider-Man. Because Spidey, I mean, he is the tentpole of Marvel, regardless of Robert Downey Jr. or whoever. Spider-Man is to Marvel as Batman is to DC in the sense that whenever they try to start doing something on television or movies from Marvel or DC, it always begins with Spider-Man and Batman. And he, it is kind of there's a lot to him. He's, in one sense, he's just a kid or a young adult, depending on when you're reading him, who's trying to get by in the real world as a photojournalist. And then in another sense, he's got these superpowers and he's trying to do the right things with him without, falling into, being a villain and trying to live up to the legacy that his uncle left to him and trying to be a good man. So, yeah, that's why I have him at number 3.
I still say Venom is more interesting, but that's an interesting take of him being the tentpole. I never really actually thought about it that way.
Think about how many times have they rebooted him in the last 20 years?
How many Spider-Man movies do we have to see? With what character?
So, although I'm going to say this to Julie about the new Batman, if she's worried about Robert Pattinson, A, go watch The Lighthouse, okay? And
or
B,
Time.
And what I'm going to say about it is B is, at least it's not another fucking Batman origin story. He's already Batman. They are at this point. Matt Reeves has made the greatest directorial decision ever in regards to Batman. He is trusting that the audience is smart enough and educated enough to know what Batman's bloody origin story is.
I don't know how many more times we can kill his parents.
Yeah,
but I'm sure that they're going to try.
Maybe not in this one, but they will try again.
Yeah.
We know.
I can't do the emo Batman is all. I can't do like the broody.
I'm not
we'll see
I'm not pushing the judgment until I see it. I like Robin Pattinson as an actor. Good Time. It's on Netflix. You should see it. And Alex Moore reviewed the Devil in the Ride movie with him and Tom Holland this week. It's on Netflix, and he texted me the other night and said that was one of the most evil characters, the preacher played by Robin Pattinson, that he's ever seen.
Oh,
and he's one of the harshest critics we have at that nerd show. So Robert Pattinson passed Harry Potter and the fucking Twilight series. He is a good actor.
I'm not even going to hold Harry Potter against him. Like, he took Twilight for a paycheck. He got paid. Good on him. The movie's horrible.
It got him more work. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. Julie, this one's for you. My number 3 is the Joker, the greatest villain in all comic books.
Number 3?
You'll understand why when you know my first 2 choices.
I doubt it.
No, you'll understand. But no, I got to go with the Joker. There's just no better villain.
But which Joker?
Well, okay. If you're looking at an actual movie version, I'm always going to go with Jack Nicholson. That's my Joker.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But if you're talking
Heath Ledger is
about
a close second.
If you're talking about an overall Joker, I will always go with Mark Hamill, just because of the different ways that he portrayed it. And
specifically for me, Mark Hamill from Arkham City and Arkham Asylum. the video.
Yeah.
Because the video game takes were just, they could go a little bit darker than the cartoons were. The cartoons were great, don't get me wrong. But the video
But you
game,
can watch that like a show. It feels
Yeah.
like a show. Yeah.
yeah, the video games had a little more freedom.
Yeah.
I also liked, when we did the Killing Joke movie a few years ago, how
Mhm.
Mark Hamill and switching voices, made the Joker more sympathetic with giving kind of an origin story, even though it may not really be his origin story, but then going right back to evil. And it's Mark Hamill, to me, I don't know if Mark Hamill would physically be able to be a great Joker. I don't, compared to others. I think Heath Ledger had the better physicality with all of his weird little mannerisms, but the voice itself, Mark Hamill's the best. So anyway,
If Mark Hamill had the maturity he has now when he was 25 doing Luke Skywalker, then yes. But that's a hard combination to match.
Right. So anyway, that's number 3 for me. Who's your number 2 character, Julie?
So another Phillips and Brubaker. I love Rick Lawless, and they've actually done a lot of the criminal series. They had like 2 seasons in the first run, and then they stopped and worked on some other stuff. They brought Criminal back. They stopped and, worked on some other stuff again, and then they just put out a book. And I have to tell you, like, everything that they write with this character is just awesome. And he's very complicated. He's really like the bad boy trying to go straight, but it's just way too hard for him. The only way that he can live through life is crime, basically.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like how Julie's just pulling out like weird characters that people have. It's like, I'm going to give you a top 10 list, but I'm going to educate you on shit you need to be reading you've never heard about. All right, Brendan, who's number 2 for you?
Well, my top 10 list is much more mainstream, but that's just because that's what I was exposed to as a kid. So, my number 2, I'm about to piss Julie off because my number 2 is Wonder Woman, because she was the first female character that wasn't a derivative character of a male superhero. She wasn't. She wasn't Superwoman. She wasn't She-Hulk. She wasn't, Spider-Woman, Batgirl, Batwoman, whatever. She was her own thing. She was badass, and she was part of the Justice League and stood up to everybody in the Justice League. In fact, the only person in the Justice League that probably actually had a chance, that probably could beat her, really was Spider-Man, or Superman. So, she's a badass. She's a woman. She's her own character. She's got her own storylines, her own interests. And she was the first one that was not a derivative of some other man. She was a woman on her own standing. And that's why I have her at number 2, because, look, even going forward now, when we talk about trying to empower women, all of these characters coming out, now we've had Batgirl for years, now we have Batwoman. Oh, okay, because that empowers women. It's just another derivative of another man's, why don't you actually create a unique character? Hell, Batman's, and this is why I had them in my top 10, Batman's female villains are more unique than half of the male or female superheroes, and they're villains. But
here's what I will say is kind of the best thing about Wonder Woman. I love how the original comics came out when it stretched sexuality with the original writer being in love with 2 women and basically threesomes all the time, and how it was a little bit too much of a dominatrix or S&M in the original comics, which just pushed the envelope. But it also pushed the envelope for gender equality too, to show that you can be a beautiful woman, a warrior, and sexual all at the same time, and it's not improper. So,
and to be fair, I don't really have any problems with Wonder Woman. My problem is with the movies. When it comes to the character in the comics, I think she's great. Not really something that I read avidly, but when it comes to the movies, that's really where I get kind of like, okay, it was just the huge, now women are represented. Now we have a strong female.
Well,
Stuff like, you're a traitor to your gender because you don't love Wonder Woman.
All you want, but Gal Gadot is a fucking badass, and I don't care when any.
She's hot. I don't think she was a good Wonder Woman, but that's me.
screen.
I'll tell you what, I know a lot of guys she could kick the shit out of in real life.
Oh,
'cause
sure. Yeah.
She was in the Israeli self-defense, or the Israeli
Yeah.
defense forces. Everybody's like, oh, she's so tiny. I'm like, you go pick a fight with her. She knows Krav Maga. I want to see that.
Good luck with that. I want to see how that turns out.
Warrior.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, here's my number 2 character, and it might surprise people that this isn't my number 1, but Deadpool turned out to be number 2. And the best anti-hero out there, the merc with the mouth. The movies have been fantastic with Ryan Reynolds. And I love everything about Deadpool. There's nothing to hate. Like I said, he is the true anti-hero, but always, fucking hysterical. So
I really love all those little figures with him and like the unicorns. I think those are really so cute.
Right. So also one of the best press screenings ever with Brendan is literally when he fell out of the seat laughing at the Deadpool movie. Rolled out of the seat. I mean, it was still worth it, but I mean, it's just, and I'm right there with you, but I've never been
a close second to when in a crowded theater, a crowded, quiet theater, I yell, fuck yeah, when Darth Maul showed up in Solo.
The Disney reps are like, did somebody, somebody just said. But anyway, Deadpool is my number 2 for all those reasons. Like I said, the greatest anti-hero. And I know some people are like, not number 1, and you may be surprised what my number 1 is. But anyway, your number 1 character, Julie, who is the best comic book character?
Well, nobody's going to be surprised about my number 1. My number 1 is the Joker.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a fun conclusion.
Now, I love him because of his complexity. He's very complex. I love how funny he can be. I also really love, though, the different renditions of him. One of my favorites, it's obviously not my actual, number 1 favorite, but one of my really close to the top favorites is the Martha Wayne Joker.
Yes.
Which is really great. And it's actually my favorite. I have a Pop Funko of that one, or a Funko Pop of that one, and it's actually one of my favorite pops too. But I just really love, I remember watching that when it actually happened in Flashpoint Paradox, and I was just like, what? And I rewound it 5 times. I was like, wait a minute.
I know. So I don't disagree with you. I mean, to me, the Joker is one of those, it feels like anybody can go so batshit crazy, no pun intended, that you can become the Joker. He is that line that everybody can be driven to. Mm-hmm. So the Joker's origin story can be anything.
Right.
Because it's all of us.
Yeah.
It's, to me, and granted, I'm with you about the movie with Joaquin Phoenix, but I think
I feel a butt coming on.
One of the things that to me, the movie represents the fact that it doesn't need to be the actual Joker, and they've already said that's not the real Joker. It's the fact that anybody can be pushed to that point. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's much more of a, video for mental illness than anything else. But at the same time, again, any different buddy can become a Joker, and that's why the different, incarnations are fantastic. So, all right, Brendan, who is your number 1?
Well, my number 1 is, again, I'm gonna do a pairing here because I've got Batman and the Joker, because you can't really have one without the other.
That's true.
And if you're really, I'm not going to speak for anybody. If I'm really honest with myself, if I had the skills, Batman is who I'd want to become, but I'm afraid the Joker is who I would become.
Ooh,
that's very funny.
Wow, that is an interesting analogy.
So,
wow.
It's just like, because there is a lot of stuff in this world that pisses you off, and you see it on a daily basis. And would I have the depth of character, the quality of self-control to become Batman, or would I just devolve into lashing out and being the Joker? It's really about who you are versus who you could become. And you brought it up, Julie, with the Martha Wayne Batman or the Martha Wayne Joker, because in that Flashpoint storyline, Bruce is killed and Thomas Wayne becomes Batman, but Martha goes insane and becomes the Joker. So it really shows how they really are two sides of the same coin. You know, and to that somewhere Harvey Two-Face is smiling. But, you know, so, I just think you can't have one without the other. They really do define each other. And even at the end of Killing Joke, you know, hell, even in Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, Terry McGinnis keys on. He goes, all Joker ever really wanted to do was make Batman laugh. And then he he goes, and I am laughing at you, but only because I think you're kind of pathetic. And that drives, you know, Joker over the edge, and he makes mistakes. But at the end of the Killing Joke, the Joker actually makes Batman laugh.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and I think that also it's in Death of the Family, there's something that the Joker says where he says, you might not love us like we love you, but all of your enemies, we do love you, and we're trying to make you better. Without us, you would just be a guy sitting around, you know, but that's why I killed all of these people. You know, that's why Robin's dead right now, is because they're just heavyweight holding you down. We want to lift you up. We want to make you the best thing that you can be. And as dark and twisted as it sounds, it's true. You know, like that's how he sees it. And without the Joker, there would be no Batman. And it really almost is analogous to a really twisted love story.
So,
or at least a twisted twin brother story anyway.
Right.
Going into the analogy that you made, Brendan, one of the reasons Allison writes for us is her master's thesis in college was applying the X-Men to Joseph Campbell's A Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Nice.
It's a brilliant read. I wish he would actually expand on it and write, you know, an interesting book on it. But apply that same idea to Batman, who are two characters, one that wears makeup, whether it's permanent or one who puts on a mask, and it's the different mask that you take on. What you want to be, the truth that you know, who you truly are with that mask to cover up your own pain versus what you may end up being, and how you have those two things pulling at you at your very soul. What line do you cross? Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of another analogy of every hero has a mask on at some point, hiding who they are, whether it's a change of name or putting on a costume and a cape or whatever. And they need that for that mantle to be their ultimate self. Yeah. So it's an interesting analogy in the duality of why you have to have them together. Mm-hmm.
And another layer to that is that they're kind of like the angel and the devil on your shoulder. You have one that's absolute pure good, and then the other one is absolute chaos. And it's like, you know, it kind of makes the comic a little bit more interesting because it's like, well, who do I go with? Like, who do I want to side with? Which side is going to win? Well,
you know, think about Batman Begins is actually my favorite movie of that trilogy because I think that was a better, like, origin story, and maybe the fact that it wasn't linear made it more interesting. But I like what Rachel says at the end of it, that I can't be with you until you don't need Batman, until you don't need that mask anymore.
Yeah.
So, can you give that up to be with me? And he's not ready to do it yet. So
because he's cheating with the Joker.
Well, he didn't know it yet, but yes.
Yes. Yeah. Can't give up his mistress.
All right. So here's my number one. It may surprise everybody. This is my all-time favorite comic book character, but it's Constantine.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
As much as everybody hates that Keanu Reeves movie, I love Constantine.
I don't hate that Keanu Reeves movie. I don't think it was the greatest, but I don't think it deserved the hate it got.
Yeah.
But I will say no. I think Constantine on TV is better.
Right.
Yeah, because he embodies Constantine. He looks like Constantine. He acts like Constantine. And he sounds like Constantine's supposed to sound.
And here's my reasoning for being Constantine. One, I'm always fascinated by someone that deals with the occult and stuff like that. To me, he's the Dresden of the DC universe. Okay.
Very much so.
And he's a punk rocker. He's foul all over the place. He's chaos in his own way, and applies that to his trade, but really does the ultimate good because of all these outside forces that we don't talk about. And it's whether you're religious or not, it's blending those kind of supernatural forces into the world of comic books, and we deal mostly with superpowers. That it's one big mixed bag. Also,
and like me, he suffers from imposter syndrome in a terrible way.
Right. That's another way.
We all think like I've had so many people tell me my beer is really, really good and they love my beer and my beer is great. And I always constantly feel like I'm not good enough and I have to do better. And that's Constantine to a T. He always feels like he's not good enough, regardless of how many people he saves.
You mean, Brendan, you have OCD when it comes to making your beer?
I have OCD about everything. I mean, I have imposter syndrome about everything in my life. But
I say that because I talk about the technicalities of every little thing too with you guys, But anyway, to me, Constantine, and I don't know if I would really call him an anti-hero. I don't necessarily think he is compared to like Deadpool and the Punisher and other characters, but he seems that way because of the way he comes across. He's not straight-laced, okay? And
he's an anti-hero in the way he talks. He's a hero in his deeds.
Right. I love the fact that the CW brought him back in a way after NBC canceled, one season of his show, which I don't understand why, because it was great. But yeah, it's just to blend that supernatural with superpowers in what he deals with. I just think he's the best character and the more interesting. And again, I like the fact that he's kind of he's the punk rocker version of a superhero that is chaos in his own way. Now,
he idolized the Sex Pistols. What more do you need to know?
Exactly.
He's the Mick Jagger of comics.
Exactly. We can keep dropping, music references all day long. But yeah, Constantine's my number one. All right, here's one quick thing, and then we got to wrap this up. We gave you our top 10 list, but we want to talk about the worst superhero in comics. Julie, did you think of one?
Batman. I'm just kidding. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have Batman, I couldn't have my Joker.
There you go.
There was one, and he wasn't a reoccurring character, but in the original, I want to say it was the first appearance of the Joker in the Batman comic. So it probably was the first appearance of Batman. Nope, I'm wrong. It was in the Joker had his own comic book series. It was only 9 issues. And the first issue in that series, he encounters this guy who, I guess he's like a villain in his own small way, but he cries. He just constantly cries. And he was called like Weeping Willie or something like that. It was so confusing. And the entire issue was the Joker and this guy. And I just kept thinking, why? Like, why do we need a character that just constantly cries?
And James Bond did that better anyway, because you had Lashif and he cried blood.
I didn't know that one. I'll have to watch that.
In Casino Royale, Lashif, he had a problem with his tear ducts and he actually cried blood in one out of.
I remember that. Oh.
Yeah. And by the way, Casino Royale is on Netflix and Amazon Prime.
So is Quantum of Solace.
If you love Ava Green, you got to automatically go watch that movie.
You have to. Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. Brendan, who's the worst superhero or character in comic books for you?
It's got to be the worst costume of all time, too. And he's going to be in the next freaking Suicide Squad movie. Polka Dot Man. Like, James Gunn is like, I think James Gunn put this character in the movie because he's like, this is the shittiest character in all of comic. And if I can even make him somewhat interesting, then my Suicide Squad is going to be a triumph over the other Suicide Squad that you can't even measure by any means.
I really thought you were going to say Mr. Mixie-Plicked.
He's wearing white spandex with a whole bunch of polka dots on him. That's his fucking... Really? He looks like,
Right.
you know what he looks like?
Man.
He looks like, remember the commercial Skittles had about 10 years ago where people would break out in Skittles like they would break out in the measles? You got a case of the Skittles?
Yeah.
That's what he looks like. And he's supposed to be a villain. Like, tell me Batman, Superman, or anybody else in DC, Nightwing, anybody, the Flash isn't going to look at him and go, you're cute. Okay, put you in Arkham.
All right, so I actually have two. The first one I want to rag on is I've never understood the point of Shazam. You have Superman. Shazam literally has all the same powers. And the fact that when you made Shazam, there was a fucking lawsuit that this is too close to Superman. Okay? But no, it's different. It's a little boy who discovers a magic cave and becomes Shazam. So it's a little boy.
It's big becomes Superman.
Right. And I'm not saying that the Shazam movie with Zachary Levi wasn't kind of cute, funny, and all that, but it certainly was not the best of the DC movies, and that's saying a lot.
I got to say this. When Black Adam comes out and they put Black Adam versus Shazam, I'm rooting for The Rock.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a cute little kids movie of, hi, we're all orphans. We discovered magic, and now we're bigger with superpowers. And I'm like, if you just want to make a little orphan Annie with superpowers, can we just call it that?
Yeah.
There's no point to this character whatsoever. Okay? None. So, anyway. But I swear to God, this is literally a real comic book character called Leather Boy. Leather Boy dresses up in S&M outfits with a ball in its mouth. Yes.
So it's the Gimp.
He's part of the Great Lakes Avengers team, if you know what that is. Not clear on what his superpowers really are, except a disturbing costume. But if you've ever watched the Police Academy movies and the scene where they wander to the Blue Oyster Bar, you would find
what happened at the party. There was dancing, sir. Lots and lots of dancing.
But yes, somebody made an S&M character with a leather outfit that looks like one of the Village People to be a superhero.
I bet it was Bob Kane, that kinky asshole.
Somebody thought this was okay, and they printed comics with this character. Okay? The first time I heard about it, I thought, oh, wait, is that the Gimp from the Pulp Fiction movie?
That's what I just said.
Is that really a superhero? So, yes, Leather Boy. All I want to know is, when you were thinking of this character,
how many drugs were you on?
Yeah, and please share. So there you go. We did. There's also a character called Hell Cow. There's a magic cow with superpowers. That's always good.
Okay, that's cool.
And then there's another one, literally called Hindsight Lad. There is a character that has the superpower of hindsight. So anyway.
That's all of us.
Not me.
I don't know if we need an actual character like that. But anyway, those are our top 10 characters in comic books. We would love to know your thoughts. If you agree or disagree with our list, you can tweet us out at That Nerd Show. We'd also like to know what you think is the worst super or character from a comic book. Those are always interesting, and we may do a show about that one day and just talk about like literally the worst written. Like when Stan Lee decided to go off on a bender one day and decided, you know what we should do? She-Hulk, and it's going to be the cousin of Bruce Banner, and she's going to become a Hulk because she needs a blood transfusion from her cousin. And I say that because there's going to be a She-Hulk series on Disney Plus.
Yes, there is.
I will check it out because I love the actress who's going to play She-Hulk, Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black. But that's about, anyway. I have no other words other than that. So we'll be back next week. Thanks for tuning in. Brendan, for those who are in the Dallas area, what beer should they come try at the Craft and Growler? We're going to give them some free press.
Well, hey, Return of the Mac version 2 has been getting great reviews. I'm going to have our new version of our Hefeweizen, our refined version of our Hefeweizen up on tap today. And we've got our brand new Kolsch on tap. Coming next week will be our American IPA.
All right. Fantastic. All right. We're out of here. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody.